everyone, welcome back to Coach Hall Writes. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some tips to help you answer the writing multiple choice questions on the AP Lang exam. The writing multiple choice questions account for approximately half of the multiple choice section. During this section, you will have 1 hour to answer 45 questions. The first two passages are the reading passages, so those are longer and they tend to have more questions. Those are comprehension based. However, the writing questions, which is what we're going to talk about in this video, are more like editing questions. One skill you're going to need to know is how to combine sentences. So for these questions, we want to select answer choices that avoid redundant or confusing wording. So basically, we want to look for the answer choice that is the most direct as far as conveying the author's intention, and also the one that's the easiest to read. Because some of the distracting answer choices are going to be correct, they're going to convey the same information, but they might be wordier or they might be difficult to read based on the structure of the sentence. In some cases, these answer choices might be longer as well. Sentences can be combined with colons, semicolons, dashes, but unlike the ACT or the SAT, you're not going to be assessed on whether or not you know the correct piece of punctuation to go there. You're going to be assessed on the style instead. You're also going to be assessed on your understanding of transition words or phrases. These questions can be a transition in the middle of a paragraph, or it can even be in the topic sentence, transitioning from one paragraph to the next. Either way, you're going to want to figure out the relationship between what comes before the transition word and what comes after it. Usually, if you can ask yourself, what is the relationship between these two sentences or these two paragraphs, you can determine which type of word you're looking for and therefore eliminate other answer choices. There are multiple transition words that mean the same thing. Sometimes there is a slight nuance to their meaning, but here are some of the common transition words that you might want to know. So we've got however and by contrast. Now, however is usually used for a rebuttal of some sort, whereas by contrast is simply just pointing out the difference between two things. It's not necessarily saying that one is better than the other. However indicates that what follows is the claim that we want you to think about, or it's what the writer is trying to tell you is superior. You could also use words like conversely, nonetheless, and nevertheless. Another word that you might see as an answer choice is subsequently. This just means after. You might also see moreover, furthermore, or additionally. Those three words all tend to serve roughly the same purpose. There's also words like therefore, consequently, as a result, and thus. Now, these aren't the only words that you might see as an answer choice, but these are the ones that I think might pose the most difficulty. There could be other words like elsewhere, or similarly, or likewise. And in general, students know what these mean, so they are able to decide if that is or is not the correct word. It's also possible that you'll be asked about word choice and tone. Remember that tone is the author's attitude toward the subject. So when you're thinking about the tone, ask yourself how the writer feels about the topic that they're writing about. And thinking about the relationship between word choice and tone, you want to select an answer that matches the tone of the passage. So you want to make sure that you're avoiding answer choices that are too casual. Maybe they have a really cliche or idiomatic expression. Those are not the right answer. But you also don't want to automatically choose something just because it sounds fancy either. It's important to maintain an academic tone, but also be mindful of the connotation of different words. So for example, if you have two different answer choices, let's say you've eliminated the other three, but one of them says the word manipulates the audience, and the other answer choice talks about appealing to the audience's emotions. Well, manipulates has a negative connotation. So if the passage does have a negative tone, meaning that the writer does have a negative attitude toward the subject, then manipulates might be the best answer. However, if the passage is more neutral, maybe it's meant to be informative and not negative, then manipulates would not be the best answer there. Instead, you might choose appeals to the audience's emotions. You also might be asked to identify a thesis. Remember that the thesis is the central claim of the passage. Now, when students are writing their own essays, typically the thesis is the last sentence of the introductory paragraph. However, in more formal writing, this is not always the case. The thesis can technically occur anywhere in the passage. So for these, you might have to use process of elimination, in which case eliminate any answer choices that are a detail or supporting evidence because those are not the thesis. You're also going to be asked questions that ask you if the writer should add a particular sentence. For these questions, it'll tell you where in the paragraph the writer wants to add that sentence, and you have to decide whether they should or should not. So your answer choices are going to be either yes or no, plus an explanation. Because there are 5 answer choices on the AP Lang exam, you might have 3 yeses and 2 nos, or you might have 2 yeses and 3 nos. Just because there's 3 out of 5 for either the yeses or the nos, that's not actually a hint to tell you to look at those more closely. In fact, I tell my students to try to answer the yes or no part first and tell me why before they look at the answer choices. So we'll read the sentence, we'll look at it in context, and then I'll ask them, should the writer add this sentence, yes or no? They'll tell me, and then I'll ask them why. Now, usually the reason why is something to do with it adds clarity, or it's a definition, or it helps with the flow of the essay, things like that. Usually what my students tell me then matches up with an answer choice. There's also keep delete questions. So basically these are the same kind of concept. You might be told that the writer wants to delete a certain sentence and asked if they should keep it or delete it. In this regard, it's kind of similar to the adding a sentence question, simply because you want to ask yourself, what is the value of the sentence? So if we should add a sentence or if we should keep a sentence, there has to be a reason. So what is the value of the sentence? How is it helping that paragraph? And also, how is it helping the passage as a whole? So again, we might want to add or keep a sentence if it has a definition, an example, or supporting evidence or detail. Those aren't the only reasons, but those are some of the common reasons why we would add or keep a sentence. Now, if it's extraneous detail or if it's redundant, then we would choose the delete option. So those were some quick tips about the writing portion of the multiple choice section of the AP Lang exam. If you found this video helpful, please do me a huge favor and give the video a thumbs up. Also, make sure that you're subscribed. That way you don't miss any future AP Lang content. If you're a student studying for the upcoming AP Lang exam, go on over to TikTok and follow me at Coach Hall Writes there as well. And if you're looking for additional resources to help you study, be sure to check out the description box below. Until next time, happy writing!